Okay, so in this class, we'll be looking at the demo on thread sleep method and interrupt. What is the use of these two methods with respect to threads? For this, I'll be creating a class by name numbers, and in this class, I'm going to have two basic methods. One is a public method which will generate numbers. This will generate numbers. Just I'm going to print the numbers from 1 to 100 here. Nothing much. For int I is equal to 0, I less than equal to 100, I plus plus. So what we are going to do here is we'll print the numbers from 1 to 100, right? So we'll not start with 0, we'll say 1. From 1 to 100 are, we'll say side. So just printing the numbers from 1 to 100 in this method. We'll create another method too. In this method, we'll generate numbers from 100. That is, we'll print maybe from 101 to 200. Numbers from 101 to 200 are okay. So two simple methods, printing numbers from 1 to 100 or generating numbers from 101 to 200. Two methods. Now what I will do is I'll create a thread to run this method, another thread to run this method. Parallelly, we are going to execute these two methods. For that, the very first step is create an object of type numbers. So we'll an object of type numbers here. We call that T. And we have to create two threads. One thread is for this method, another thread is for this method. So let me create these two threads. Thread hr1 is equal to new thread, and we'll pass the runnable object. It's an anonymous object we are creating here. And what we are going to perform here is we'll call t.generate numbers. So we are calling this method which will generate numbers from 1 to 100. And we'll create another thread to thread thr2 is equal to new thread, and we'll pass this runnable target. So that's the anonymous object. And how we override the run method here, we call t.generate numbers from 101. Two threads we have created, and each thread will execute this method simultaneously. And now what I'm going to perform is I'll start these two threads, thr1.start and thr2.start. Finally, we'll also have a message in our main thread like thanks for using our software. So three threads will execute, thread 1, thread 2, and main. What will be the output here? Let's take a look at this. So you can see the output. First, the main thread completes. Next, we have 101 to 200, 1 to 100. So there'll be some shuffling of the output between these two methods because we have created threads. This we have already seen, we already know from our previous classes. So if you have any confusion on how to create these things, please refer to my previous lectures. Now, what I'm going to perform next is I'm going to use the sleep method in one of the methods here. So I'm going to call the sleep method. For that, say I'm going to perform a very simple check. If I equals 5, so if we reach 5, then I'm going to call thread.sleep. And I'm going to make this thread sleep for 10,000 milliseconds or 10 seconds. See, there is one important thing here. When you're calling this sleep method, you have to use the class name thread because it's a static method in the thread class. And another thing is, it's throwing me a warning here. It's an error actually. That is, we have to use try catch. blocks when we are calling the sleep method. So I have to include this inside the try catch block. So we'll catch. And why we are including this inside the try catch block is, suppose if a thread is interrupted while it is in the sleep state, it will throw an interrupted exception which we have to handle. So I'll just catch this interrupted exception in the catch. Give us a short statement saying exception handled here. This interrupted exception will be created when a thread is interrupted while it is in the sleep state. So what is this sleep state? What is the use of the sleep state? When I put a thread in the sleep state, the thread passes execution. And while it is passing its execution, any other thread that may be waiting, for instance, there is a thread that's running generate numbers from 101, there's the main thread. So any other thread that's waiting will utilize the resources and it will complete. So this thread will heal the processor, and then another thread can utilize the time for completion. So what we are seeing here is a thread put on sleep. So we'll see what happens when the thread goes to sleep, how the other thread works. So it's very simple. And I will perform something like thread1 dot start. Okay, I'm sorry. What I will perform here is I want to give a higher priority to thread 1. So I'll set the priority for thread 1 as 10. That is the max priority. Because I want thread 1 to run first, get more priority, and let it move to the sleep state. So while it moves into the sleep state, you can very well see thread 2 will occupy that time slice and it will finish. And I'm going to set the priority for thread 2 as 1. So we'll set the priority for thread 2 as 1. What is that I'm achieving here? I'm giving maximum priority for thread 1, minimum priority for thread 2. So thread 1 will start, it will move to the sleep state. So while it is sleeping, you can see thread 2 will utilize the time slice and complete. So once when a thread sleeps, another thread will utilize that time slice and finish. So that's what is the demo all about. Let's run this. Let's check what happens now. So you can very well see here, main thread as usual completed first. And we have got some statements in thread 2 executing. The real output we were looking for is here. So thread 1 starts, it runs till 5, and then it moves to the sleep mode because we have requested it to go to the sleep state for 10 seconds when it reaches the value 5. So you can very well clearly see here, after reaching 5, it moves to the sleep state. So once when it moves to the sleep state, thread 2 continues. It starts occupying the time slice and it completes. Say within those 10 seconds, you can see thread 2 completing fully because it is utilized those 10 seconds. Thread 1 was in the sleep state. And then after the 10 seconds elapsed, you can see thread 1 coming back from the sleep state and it is completing its activity of printing the 100 numbers. So I can even run this again. I hope you are able to follow this. So what is the use of sleep state? So you can very well see here again, every time it runs till 5, thread 1 moves to the sleep state. During that time, thread 2 takes up completes in those 10 seconds. And after those 10 seconds, you see the numbers from 1 to 100. That is, this thread wakes up after the time gets elapsed and then it finishes. So that is the use of sleep method. So when you don't interrupt a thread, what happens is it goes to the sleep state. While it is sleeping, the another thread completes, right? But now what I'm going to do is after starting thread 1, I will also interrupt thread 1. So when I start thread 1, what happens? This thread will move to the sleep state. What it means, this thread will start, that is, the run method will call generate numbers, and this will run. When I reaches 5, this will move to sleep state. So it will be past now, right? So it is past. After that, we are also calling thread1 dot interrupt. What it means, I'm just interrupting the sleep state. So interrupt is, we are interrupting the sleep state, so that this thread, when it is getting interrupted, it will throw an interrupted exception object. So it's going to throw us an object of type interrupted exception, which will be handled here. So this thread, when it is interrupted, it will move from the sleep state and it will start running again. So it will start running from 6, 7, 8, and it will complete. So you can make a thread to pass. You can also make the interrupt the thread so that it wakes up from the sleep state and proceeds ahead. So we'll see what's the output now while we interrupt a thread. So I'm interrupting the thread. So we'll see whether it is passing till 10 seconds or whether it is, what is the output? We'll see now. Okay. Yeah. You can very well see here, main thread completed. Then the numbers from 1 to 5 is getting printed. What is that? So you're seeing the numbers from 1 to 5 getting printed. When I reaches 5, it enters the sleep state. But what happens? We are interrupting the thread. So from the sleep, it's going to be disturbed, right? So it will be interrupted. While it is interrupted, it is going to throw an object of type interrupted exception. So you're getting this object here and you're handling this exception here. So you're handling it. So after it is interrupted, it has come out of the sleep state. So it's going to proceed further and print the remaining numbers. So you can see here, number 6 to remaining numbers are getting printed. Because it has come out of the sleep state, we have interrupted it and it has thrown an object of type interrupted exception, which we have handled that. And after it completes, you can see thread 2 is printing numbers 101 to 200. So this is how you can use interrupt. So I start it, move it to sleep, then interrupt it so that it again wakes up and it completes. Why this is given more preference? Because I have set the priority to 10 and thread 2 priority is 1. So once when thread 1 completes most of its statements, thread 2 also completes. And this is the main thread. This has got its normal priority and all these threads execute independently. So I hope you are now clear with what is thread sleep and thread interrupt.